My name is Marilyn Ogilvie, and I'm here with a question on the health and hospital situation. I know many of us who migrated to the United States and other countries. For me in particular, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to America, stay a couple years, make some money, come back home. But at this point in time, a lot of people who are retiring, who have retired, and the situation of the health and hospitals in Grenada is a real problem. There are people who have gone to Grenada and fell sick and had to fly back to the United States or to neighboring countries for medical help. As recently as earlier this year, one of my nephew's son, he was injured, he got cut in his eyes, and he went to the hospital. They did surgery on his eye. However, the retina in his eyes was misplaced. These are poor people we're talking about. We are, I don't like to say poor because we have come from very far and we're in a better place now, thank God. But he was waiting on some help from the government to go to Trinidad, which is just a few miles away, to get some help to reattach the retina in his eyes. The doctors or whoever did the surgery in Grenada did not do a good job. And so they had put out, I didn't even know about it. Maybe if they had told me about it before, I probably would have done something. This happened in November, I knew about it in January. So they had to do a GoFundMe and all that stuff in order to get money to try and help the young man get, he's 21 years of age. He has his whole life ahead of him. So we, as family members, came together and we put the money together. We sent it to Trinidad, directly to the hospital. We were told that the Grenada government is going to donate $1,000 US. We came up with almost $5,000 US. Because the young man had to sit and wait for the government to approve $1,000 US, by the time he got to Trinidad, they couldn't reattach the retina to his eyes. My question to you, and it's in health in general. There are people who say they're not going to go to the hospital if they're sick because they prefer to stay home and die. It's a sad situation, very sad for a country, because health is supposed to be the most important thing for a country. The health of your people is supposed to be the most important thing. My question, and this is personal, I'm sorry. I said I wasn't going to cry, but I'm a crier, so just bear with me. What would you say to those people who are saying that they prefer to stay home and die than go to the hospital to get treatment? And what is the solution that this new government has or planning to put in place for situations regarding patients' emergency, urgent care, as well as medication and other matters of concern of the people?
Right. Well, thank you for the question, and let me express, I don't know when it happened, and there are many of these kinds of horror stories coming out of our health system over the last several years, if not the last decade or two in Grenada. So certainly to the young man who probably lost his sight, you know, certainly I want to empathize with him and his family and you and your family. And I'm sorry to hear of that situation. And in a sense, part of the reason I'm here today is because we've all heard or know someone who experienced some horror story or the other with the lack of adequate health services in Grenada. And that is something we are committed to fixing. It's aspirational. We know that it wouldn't happen overnight. But it has to be the political willpower to address the healthcare system. And I think I can safely say from my own interaction with Grenadians in Grenada and Grenadians in the diaspora that the state of our healthcare tops all of the agenda items as the most critical issue that we need to address. So the Minister of Health isn't here, but let me certainly say on his own behalf that he is working around the clock to begin addressing the issues that we face in healthcare. But because the issues are to some extent chronic, it is going to require a short-term, medium, and long-term plan. I can start with the short-term plan. The plan is in fact to relocate the emergency ward by January of this year to what is described as the new building within the hospital compound. The aim, therefore, is to have a facility that is significantly improved. I'm aware that the staff within the Ministry of Health is actually aiming to try and have this done in October. That's ambitious. If it does happen, obviously, we would welcome it. But the realistic time frame is January. So that's the starting point, to relocate the emergency ward to facilities that are more suited for that. The second issue is we need to strengthen our primary health care and our medical stations and clinics throughout the country so that everything doesn't come to the hospital. And that's part of the challenge we face. I think the statistics are saying that every month the emergency and accident ward sees 2,000 persons. Well, that's 2,000 persons per month. That's 24,000 people per year. That's almost 25% of Grenada's population. And there is no way that the issues that these 24,000 persons are facing are necessarily emergencies that requires you to be at the emergency and accident ward. And part of the reason for that is because everything is sucked into St. George's, because we have not invested sufficiently in the health, in the clinics and the medical stations and health stations around the island. And I'm subject to correction, but none of them open 24 hours a day. Right? And that's the starting point. We have to be able to genuinely leave the hospital and the emergency ward at the hospital for what I call mission critical issues. And we need to staff and beef up our primary first point of contact, medical stations and so on, so that they can address most of the health issues that people come with, so that we do not have this relentless pressure on the hospital, and so that people don't feel that the hospital is a morgue. There's something else we need to address. And it was a similar situation with the teachers. Regrettably, I think the past administration has taken the approach that it is not on the same team as the doctors and the nurses and the other healthcare practitioners in Grenada. And if you go to war with yourself, you will kill yourself. And to a large extent, the horror stories you get out of the hospital is because the policymakers in the past went to war with our nurses, our doctors, and our healthcare practitioners. I think some of you might have been around when they were described as thieves and whatnot and whatnot. You are not going to motivate people when you demonize them and when you demoralize them. And you're not going to motivate them when you are not making any effort to improve their working conditions or the terms and conditions of service. So as a result, for example, most of our nurses, as they get an opportunity to leave Grenada, leave Grenada. So we are significantly understaffed when it comes to nurses. We are significantly understaffed when it comes to doctors per patient. And we are significantly understaffed when it comes to perhaps every other matrix that you have to use in terms of support healthcare services. So that means our education system has the plan for beefing up our healthcare sector. So it means we need to know whether it's 500, whether it's 1,000, whether it's 1,500 nurses we need, and we have to produce them. We have to go out and actively say to our young people, to fix the healthcare system in Grenada, we need to produce over the next 3, 4, 5 years 4,000 nurses. And we are incentivizing you to study becoming a nurse, or to study becoming a doctor, not just a doctor, but a specialist, or to study becoming a lab tech, or to study becoming a dentist, etc., etc. If we don't do that, even if we build a spanking new hospital, If you don't have the human resource to staff and run the hospital, it will become a morgue overnight as well. So that is the reality we're facing. So in order to transform our healthcare services, yes, we have to invest in it. We have to plan. We have to go and educate our population and create the professionals who need to work in the healthcare services. And we also need to work with the diaspora to help us doing so. So one of the things we are committed to doing under this initial term of the National Democratic Congress is in fact significantly improve our healthcare in a deliberate and structured manner. So when I talk about producing the 1,500 nurses, our education system has to do so. When we talk about what are the scholarships we need and where are we giving scholarships, it will be in nursing, it will be in dentistry, it will be creating the lab techs, creating the mechanics and the engineers who can repair the X-ray machines, etc., etc. Because the machines come down, they break down, we have to send somebody from Trinidad or Barbados or the States to come and repair them. And we can go on. And that is the chronic challenge we face. I'd also say there's one other aspect of healthcare that we have to appreciate. It's expensive. And it has to be paid for. And our current system only views it from an expenditure perspective. So the government has a budget and it spends what it can spend on healthcare. But the government itself doesn't really collect any revenue. So if you're a non-citizen of Grenada and in Grenada and you meet in an accident and you go to the hospital, they can perform surgery on you and you walk out and you don't really have to pay. Even if you have insurance. Even if you have the ability to pay for it. So those are some of the things we have to correct. So that if you have insurance and you have the ability to pay, you need to pay so that we can help deal with those who can't pay. Right? There are other things we need to look at. Health insurance, for example. The truth is, even if you are well off, if you need major surgery, including in the United States, it could bankrupt you. And I think the statistics says that the major cause of personal bankruptcy is usually healthcare. Some health-related issue, some accident, you could have been flying high, you meet in an accident, you can't work, you have to pay the medical bills, and overnight you become a pauper. So it is, at least for major medicals, certainly in the context of Grenada, we need to buy insurance for it. Because the likelihood that you'll have 100,000 in a bank account to pay for some major surgery is slim. Right? And that's part of the reality. So whether it's $5 a month, $10 a month, at least for the major medical operations, we also have to encourage people, both from a government-sponsored national health insurance and encourage the private sector to provide more health insurance coverage for people so that when they get to these critical situations where you need major surgery or you have some major medical that is expensive, that you can pay for it. Because if not, we will continue to be in a situation where people are going around doing motorcades to collect $5 here and $10 here to help this person, to send this person to Trinidad, or you have to start a GoFundMe because we are not planning for it. So we spend a lot of money on phone, data, and all these kinds of things. We could put aside the $20 a month to buy the healthcare insurance.
My name is Rita Gabriel and I'm from the Virgin Parish. There was something that really bothers me. My niece went to study in Cuba to become a doctor. And she went back to finish up to be specialized. And she spent the whole pandemic time in Cuba. But when she knew she was going back to Grenada for August, so she sent in all her paperwork since in April. She got back to Grenada and she went to the Ministry of Health. We're not hiring. Don't you hear? It's a new government and there's a whole bunch of little people inside and they don't know what they're doing. So I'm telling you that you have to clean house. There's a lot of people out there ready to sabotage, okay? So house need to be clean. Next thing is, I'm a nanny, and I took my 19-year-old child, who I take care of for years, to Grenada this August. I just came back from Grenada. And I took her to Grenada on vacation. I left her for one day on the beach by herself. She was harassed. She was harassed to the point that she cried and say, why are these people so mean? You know, that broke my heart, but I actually saw it in person. I saw there were 2 tourist people, white people, on a Grenadians bus, was humiliated. And then I took her to town. I wanted her to see St. George's. And there were vendors on the side of, not the market, but Angel's supermarket. I wanted her to taste skin up. She never had one in her life. Okay? So I asked the young man if I can have 2 skin up so she can taste it, so I'll see if she likes it before I buy it. She didn't like it. He took his hand and put a rub her neck. You want to try a piece of me? You want to taste a little piece of me? I slapped his hand off. I had a really, really bad time. My thing is that we as Grenadians, I know we can be the rudest people in the world, but we have to respect the tourists or the people who visit our island. You don't want them to leave it, and I know you're not the Minister of Tourism, but I would really like you to bring up these things to him for me, please. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all.
All right, thank you. Well, on the question of the experience, well, it makes no sense to send your citizens away to study, and when you come back, you tell them you're not hiring them. Then you might as well have left them in the country. So I can certainly assure you that we need more, not less doctors. And although I don't know her name, I'm certainly sure that once she speaks to the right persons, that the matter will be addressed. On the question of, it goes back again to the question of our service standards and how we behave or not behave. And it's not just within the public service, but it's also within the private service. How you treat your customers, at what point in time you're crossing the line and trying to be aggressive to get someone to buy something from you and not invading people's personal space. And those are issues that we have to teach our children, teach our adults in many instances, and talk about what it is to be polite and what it is to be civil. Because although we talk to ourselves as the most friendly people on earth, we are not always polite. And those are some of the things that we need to be able to. We are not always polite, and sometimes we are not orderly as well, and we're impatient. So those are some of the issues that we have to address as a nation to make sure we remain civil, become more civil, and become more polite in terms of how we deal with one another, not even before we get to the tourists. How we deal with each other first, before we then extend courtesies to tourists.